Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to be doing this from home, which is kind of strange what I'm going to say right now, that I'm actually upset for the reasons why we have to do this from home. But the vaccine is coming. People are going to get vaccinated. Enough people are going to be vaccinated that this whole thing is going to blow over, and we're not going to have to be adapting our lives anymore so much. So welcome to your English class today. We're not going to be working on the book because I don't think that everybody has their books at this point. So we're going to work on something that we can do without the books. We're going to work on grammar. Boo! The people who don't like grammar. But it's going to be okay. We're going to work with some sentences. I'm going to watch the chat box for people writing down their answers. It's going to be okay. We're going to talk about conditional sentences today. What are conditional sentences? Can anybody give me an example? I say a conditional sentence. What is your first thought? Conditional sentences. Did anybody say if? Anybody that said, or perhaps didn't say it, but if you thought conditional sentences, if clauses, bingo, you're right. Conditional sentences, they have a lot to do with that. If. If I go to the doctor, he will give me medication. More examples like this. If I do this, then this will happen. I want 5 different examples in the chat box. And I'm going to be giving you hearts and praises if the sentences are right. If they're not, I'm probably not going to be saying anything. 5 examples. I'm pretty sure I see a few good ones. And because I've seen some good examples in the chat. Excellent. If I study, I will pass. If I don't study, I will fail. And some people might say to me, hey, I don't need to study. I just pay attention in class and I remember everything. So even if you can even do a sentence like that. Even if I don't study, I will still pass. It's a possibility. So whenever we talk about a possibility that is a huge possibility, we're going to use this type of conditional. If I have money, I will buy a car. Great possibility. If I have money, there is a great possibility I will buy a car. If I eat properly, I will not be hungry. All fall under the category of things are very possible to happen. Let's look at some other examples right here. I'd like you to pay attention to number 1 first, because we're talking about huge possibilities. When there are big possibilities, lots of chances of something happening, we will use the first type of conditional. If I study, I will pass the test. And this is the same as to say the opposite. If I don't study, complete this one for me in the chat box right now. If I don't study, I will not pass the test. Pass the test. Those of you asking me if this is also correct, if I do not study, I won't pass the test. They both give the same idea. If I don't, if I do not. I will not, I won't. They both give the same idea. So the first type of conditional, we use that type of conditional when things have a high likelihood of happening, when there are very big possibilities of something happening. Let's take a look at the second type of conditional here. And I'll give you an example of this. Let us just say, right, that you're that type of person that you don't really care about this so much. There's going to be a test? Whatever. There's a test? Really? If I pass, I pass. If I don't, you really do not care what happens. But you know that if you studied, you would pass. But you're not really sure that you want to do it. So the likelihood is not like, oh yes, if I study, I will pass. I'm going to sit all night and I'm going to study and I'm going to ace it. That's the first type of conditional. If I study, I will pass. The second one is more like, yeah, maybe I'll just watch Netflix all afternoon and not even worry about this test. I mean, if I studied, I would pass for sure, but I don't think I'm going to. That's the second type of conditional, when you're a bit unsure. You're not sure about this at all. You're thinking maybe, but you're not sure if you're going to do it. If I studied, I would pass, but I don't think I'm going to. If I called Mark, he would answer, but I'm not sure I want to call him. He was a bit of a jerk to me. I called him 17 times last week and he didn't pick up. So there is a chance he would, but there's not a high probability that he will. And he's a jerk anyway. If I called Mark, he would answer, but who needs that jerk? I'm not sure. Oh, but I like him. We had such a nice date 2 weeks ago. I'm unsure. See, the second type of conditional sentence is a type of conditional sentence that there's a possibility, but it's not. You're not sure. In the first one, you're almost sure. Yes, if I study, I will pass. Because I'm smart. When I study, I always pass. So if I study, I will pass. In the second one, you're not so sure about what's going to happen. Now let's examine a third type of conditional. And this is the one where I like to explain it to people. Your situation is not that great. Because now, if we're talking about the same thing that we said before, if we're going with the test situation, now it's a month after the test. You didn't pass, and you regret tremendously that you didn't study. And you're telling yourself, I am such an idiot. If I had studied, I would have passed. But I didn't study, and I didn't pass. The same thing. I didn't call Mark, and Mark decided that he was going to go out with Elsa instead. And now you regret it. You didn't call Mark, and you regret it. And you're telling yourself, he is a bit of a jerk, but I like him. And if I had called him, he wouldn't have gone out with, what did I say, Elsa? Elsa, of course. If I had called him, he wouldn't have gone out with Elsa. Now it's too late. You see why I'm saying the third type of conditional is the one where there's nothing you can do. You can just sit there and regret what happened because you didn't do the right thing. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. You didn't do what you thought you should have done, but you didn't. So let's talk about structure here. In the if part, if she, right after the subject, I'm going to add had. If she had talked to the teacher, talked. Think of that list of verbs that you always get with the 3 forms. You're going to use the verb that's in the third column. If she had talked to the teacher, the teacher would have changed her grade. Structure. Had talked. Had plus a verb, that last column. Talked. Think of other verbs, because with talk it's kind of easy because it doesn't really change. Talked. Let's think about a different one. How about drive? Drive, drove, driven. If I had driven, I would have arrived faster. Let me write this down. If I had driven there, I would have arrived much faster. But I didn't. So I arrived there a half an hour late. So if I had driven, structure, had, then the verb from the third column. Same happens after here. Would have arrived, would have driven, would have gotten, would have spoken. Third column, speak, spoke, spoken. And there you have the structure for this one. Let's go back to the second type, and let's talk about structure here. If I studied, I would pass. So the second type of conditional, the if part, is just if, subject, verb in the past. Simple past. Second column. Drive is the first column, right? Drive, drove, driven. We're not going to mess with the third column here. Just the second. First, second. Study, studied. If I studied, I would pass the test. So you have drive, drove, driven. We're not going to mess with driven. If I drove, I would arrive faster. With the second type of conditional, You need a verb in the past for the first part. If I studied, if I worked, if I drove. And in the second part, the part that has would, you just need the verb in its simple form. Would pass, would arrive, would speak, would talk, would walk, and so forth. And the very first, simple present. If he studies, he will pass. Simple present. If I study. Simple future. Will pass. Will study. Will arrive. Will walk. It's very simple, and I know you all know this very well. That's why when I give you 8 sentences, only 8, for you to create your own conditional sentences based on the information given, you will do a fantastic job. Let's look at the situation here. I spoke to Carla. She didn't listen. So I'm going to ask my mom to speak to her. There's a huge possibility that Carla will listen if my mom speaks to her. Create your conditional sentences based off of the situations. I talked to Carla, she didn't listen. My mom will try now. And there is a huge possibility that she will listen. If my mom speaks to Carla, she will listen. It's all about possibilities. Is there a huge possibility? If, will. If you're unsure, not so sure, you're in doubt, if, would. And the very last is when there's no way that you can do anything about it because the ship has sailed. If I had, would have, or wouldn't have. You have everything laid out for you in examples, and you're going to create the sentences. If my mom speaks to Carla, she will listen. Right? I'm sure that she will listen. The second situation is maybe Carla would listen to Ricardo. Maybe. So remember when I said the second type of conditional, you're not really sure? That's it. Maybe she would listen, maybe she wouldn't. We don't know that. So it's the second. Not that much of a possibility of it happening. Second type of conditional. Carla would listen if Ricardo spoke to her. Maybe. We're not sure. You can also start the sentence with if. If Ricardo spoke to Carla, she would listen. And now we have the very last situation here. Carla is very stubborn. Everybody has spoken to her. Ricardo, I have spoken to her, all her friends. We all told her, Carla, study for your exam. If you study, you will pass. If you don't study, you won't pass. Everybody spoke to her, but she just didn't listen. And she failed her exam. So here is what you can say about Carla. If Carla had listened to people, Ricardo, me, my mom, If she had listened to people, she wouldn't have failed her exam. Another possibility here for the consequences of her actions, of her... Actually, she didn't act, she didn't listen, right? So the consequences of her not listening would be, you can use pass and you can use listened. If Carla had listened to someone, if she had listened to one of the 3 people that talked to her, she would have passed her exam. She would have passed. Now, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get situations and you're going to draw conclusions about what would happen, what will happen, what would have happened. In the first situation, I ate too much and now I have a stomachache. I ate too much and now I have a stomachache. So there's nothing that I can do about this stomachache now. I can't go back in time and say, hey, Pollyanna, don't eat. I already ate. I have already eaten so much, I ate too much. And now I have a stomachache. If I hadn't eaten too much, I wouldn't have had a stomachache. Hey, Pollyanna, have had? Isn't that weird? It might be weird, but it's correct. Trust me, it is. I wouldn't have had a stomachache. So this one was a case of third type of conditional. When the ship has sailed and there's nothing you can do about your situation. Now let's try this one in the chat box. See how it goes. Maybe I will receive a gift. And if I do, so what's going to happen here? There is a possibility that I will receive a gift. And I will thank the person who gives me this gift. I want to see what you come up with. I want to look at the chat box and I want to see everything going up and down. I want to see everybody writing down a conditional sentence for this. Is it the first type of conditional? Is it the second type of conditional? I know the word maybe perhaps will throw you off a little bit, but you can still make a choice here. I want to see how many of you are going to write, if I receive a gift, I will thank the person who gives me the gift. Remember to put a comma in between these two. That's absolutely necessary. Now I'm going to take this away because I'm sending you this and you're going to write it on your own and send it to me via email later. Number 3. I am not sure I will call Ricky. I mean, he always answers when I call. Having said that, I'm not 100% certain. So here there is doubt. It's not the high probability of something happening. Here, I'm not sure. So what do you do with this? What kind of conditional sentence can you create here? So here, I'm just giving you the very beginning of it. If I called Ricky, please finish the sentence in the chat box. If I called Ricky, I'm not going to say it because I know that some of you are going to get it right and you're going to write in the chat box. And I know that some of you have put If I called Ricky, he would answer. So that's why I deserve the heart for that. If I called Ricky, he would answer. But I'm not going to write this down because I want you to do it. So you have here number 4. Maria talks to Jade every day, and Jade acts nicely all the time. Always. So here when you say something like that, you have the word always. So it's showing you that there's a high likelihood of something happening here. It's all in your favor. It's not the third type of conditional where the ship has sailed, right? Here, you see a situation consistently happening and you're drawing a conclusion based on what you know. And what you know is that every time Maria calls Jade, she's very nice. Every day. So how about today? If Maria talks to Jade today, complete it. If Maria talks to Jade today, she will act nicely, as always. You can even add. Now here is a situation that I call sad, and there's nothing you can do to change it. My cat disappeared. I left the door open, and he went out the door. Now I don't know where my cat is. Complete the following sentence. If I hadn't left the door open, think of the verb here. Disappeared. Disappeared. And also think about the structure that I gave you before. Disappear. Disappeared. Disappeared. So whatever you combine with the verb disappear, it's going to be disappeared. My cat had already disappeared when I arrived. I had left the door open. And that's why my cat disappeared. It's my fault. And now I don't know where my cat is. And here's how the sentence starts. If I hadn't left the door open, the cat, if you said wouldn't have disappeared, you are absolutely right. Wouldn't have disappeared. But you're going to write this down. You can write this on paper. You can replay the video and look at the sentences and write them down. Or you can look at the file that I'm going to put in our group chat for all of you. And I'm also going to make it available on my website. Number 6. I'm going to tell you the story about some guy named Peter. Peter has an anger problem. You should get anger management. He's an angry guy. He gets angry at everything. Guess what he did? He was playing on his phone and he lost a game. So he threw the phone on the floor and he broke his phone. And now he needs to call his father because his father is going to pick him up, and he can't call his father because he destroyed his phone. Why? Alright, so here is the pre-made situation for you to complete. He would have been able to call his father if... Please complete this sentence. He would have been able to call his father if he hadn't destroyed his phone in anger. And those of you who wrote that, I'm not going to say too much. I don't like my chances of anybody watching this video again. But I bet any money you'd like that if you watched this video again, you would get the sentences correctly. Second, why did I use the second type of conditional for this? Because I don't know. I'm very unsure if anybody's going to watch it again. Anyway, 30 minutes of our lives have gone by. They're never coming back. Let's go. Power through. We're going to do a little bit of Quizlet Live, and then I'm going to let you sit down and work on the sentences on your own. The situation here for number 7. Meryl is rich, and she can buy a new house. Maybe she'll give her mother a car too. Melvin is not rich, so he can't buy a new house. He will not give his mother a car, but there's nothing we can do about it because he's not rich. There's nothing we can do about this now. If Melvin had been as rich as Meryl, what would have happened? If Meryl had been as rich as Meryl, he would have, remember, give, gave, given. It's the third column. He would have given his mother a car, but he didn't because he's not rich. Number 8, the very last one here, and then we're going to go to our Quizlet. Joseph is unsure. Right off the bat, you see that it's Joseph is unsure. So this is not 100%, not even by a long shot. So it's not the first condition. It's not the first conditional types of sentences. So it's not if and will. He's unsure. But there's a little bit of hope, right? You're unsure about something. It could happen. I'm not sure that it will, but it could. So there's some hope involved. He thinks maybe Catherine will say yes to his proposal. He's not very positive about it, but maybe. So here is the sentence you have to complete. If Joseph asked Catherine to marry him, second type of conditional, she would say yes. He's unsure, but maybe she would say yes, right? Okay, girls, you will receive a copy of this, so don't worry too much about it. But I also want you all to get your phones, and we're going to do a couple of rounds of Quizlet Live. Please get your phones. Hope your phones are charged. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't do this on your computer. You can do that on your computer too, but it's a lot more fun on the phone. As soon as you see the code, join. Join straight away. We're only going to do one round, and then you're going to be left on your own to work on those 8 conditional sentences that you're going to write and send to me via email, Facebook, anything goes, because I don't have access to my work computer right now. So as soon as you see the code, jump straight in. As soon as you see the code, jump straight in. I'm going to do individual individuals because it's easier with individuals. We're not going to do teams. It's kind of complicated to do it in teams under these circumstances. So we're going to do individuals. You see the code, just go straight in. We're only doing one round.